The Galactic Peace Summit of 2457 was held, as tradition dictated, on the neutral space station Harmony 7, orbiting the uninhabited world of Proxima Centauri b. It was the kind of event that made interstellar news feeds buzz with excitement and diplomatic analysts pull all-nighters trying to predict outcomes that would inevitably be wrong. Jack Armstrong adjusted his simple black Earth-issue diplomat uniform and sighed as he watched the approaching fleet of Zorgonian battleships through the observation deck window. The massive vessels, covered in enough weaponry to level a small moon, performed an elaborate synchronized maneuver that Jack supposed was meant to be impressive. It mostly reminded him of that time his nephew's drone dance team came in fourth at the regional championships. Compensating for something, aren't they? Muttered diplomat Miko Tanaka, Jack's second in command, not looking up from her holopad. Always, Jack replied, taking a sip from his coffee mug emblazoned with the phrase diplomatic immunity to bullshit. Remind me why we do this every 5 years. Because, Miko said, finally glancing up, if we didn't the Galactic Council would throw a collective tantrum, and we'd have to listen to High Counselor Drexus complain about human isolationism for another century. Jack nodded sagely. Right. And no one wants that. His voice hits that frequency that makes my feelings hurt. The station's AI chimed overhead. Attention all delegates. The Zorgonian fleet has completed their arrival ceremony and will be docking at Bay 12. The Fluvian Armada has entered the system and requests permission to begin their traditional approach of 17 honorable formations. Jack and Miko exchanged a look that communicated volumes of diplomatic exhaustion. Permission granted, replied the station's commander, a 6-armed Traxian named Relvox. Earth delegation, your transport is the only one yet to arrive. We expected a larger entourage. Jack stepped forward. Our ship will be arriving momentarily, Commander. Just the diplomatic shuttle, as usual. The Traxian's 4 eyes blinked in sequential disappointment. Very well, though I must remind you that the summit protocols allow for a military escort of up to 20 vessels. Duly noted, Jack replied with the polite smile he'd perfected during 15 years in the diplomatic corps. We just prefer to travel light. Commander Relvox made a sound that universal translators rendered as a skeptical harumph. The hegemony representatives have suggested that Earth's refusal to bring military assets to these summits indicates either profound weakness or disturbing secrecy. Jack's smile didn't falter. Well, we can't have everyone knowing all our secrets, can we? Ruins the mystery. Like finding out how a magician does their tricks. As they spoke, a sleek, modest vessel, roughly the size of a terrestrial passenger jet, approached the station. It bore no weapons, no offensive capabilities that any scan could detect, and just the simple Earth Diplomatic Corps logo on its hull. Your magic trick has arrived, Miko said, nodding toward the incoming ship. Jack watched as the Fluvian Armada, 47 warships with their distinctive purple plasma cannons glowing ominously, began their elaborate docking procedure, each species trying to outdo the others with increasingly complex military choreography. Showtime, Jack whispered, straightening his collar. Let's go be the weird humans who refuse to bring guns to a peace talk. The main docking bay of Harmony 7 resembled nothing so much as an intergalactic car show. If the cars were warships and the salespeople were military commanders with god complexes. Each delegation had arrived with what amounted to a parade of increasingly intimidating hardware. Jack and Miko strolled through this martial display with the casual disinterest of people walking past street performers they'd seen too many times before. Their simple diplomatic shuttle sat at the far end of the bay looking like a sedan parked among monster trucks. Ambassador Armstrong. A booming voice echoed across the bay. Still traveling like a cargo shipment, I see. Jack turned to face Commander Thrix of the Arcturian Defense Fleet, a massive reptilian being whose scales shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that changed with his emotions. Currently, they pulsed a smug orange. Commander Thrix, Jack replied with practiced warmth. Still compensating for planetary insecurities with excessive firepower, I see. Thrix let out a thunderous laugh that caused several nearby technicians to flinch. You humans and your psychological humor, always implying everyone else has inadequacies. He slapped Jack on the back with enough force to send a less prepared diplomat sprawling. One day you must show us what you're hiding in those secret shipyards of yours. Nothing much, Jack shrugged. Just the usual. Coffee machines. Diplomat training facilities. Galactic mini-golf championship courses. Thrix's scales flickered with disbelief. You joke, but the Zorgonians have 3 betting pools running on what Earth is concealing. The most popular theory involves weaponized black holes. Weaponized black holes. Miko interjected, sounding genuinely amused. That would be terribly inefficient. The energy requirements alone. She stopped mid-sentence as a formation of Valaxian honor guards marched past, each carrying what appeared to be a combination of a particle beam and a ceremonial halberd. Admiral Volog, Jack acknowledged as the formation parted to reveal a tall willowy alien with silvery skin and eyes that contained what looked like tiny galaxies. Your honor guard gets more shiny, every summit. Admiral Volog, of the Valaxian Fleet Command inclined her head precisely 12.3 degrees, the exact angle of respect due to a secondary powers diplomat according to Valaxian protocol. Diplomat Armstrong, her voice chimed like crystal. Once again, Earth sends its representatives unprotected and unescorted. Your species' confidence continues to perplex the analytical models. Jack smiled. Maybe we're just really friendly. No species is just really friendly, Volog replied, her galaxy eyes swirling with suspicion. Especially not one that expanded as rapidly as humanity. The Hegemony Council has officially requested that Earth disclose its military capabilities at this summit. Has it? Jack asked innocently. Must have missed that memo. Probably got caught in our spam filter. You know how it is with interstellar communication. Commander Thrix's scales flashed a momentary pattern of amusement before he controlled himself. Admiral Volog's expression remained impassive, but the galaxies in her eyes spun a little faster. The formal welcome ceremony begins in 1 standard hour. Volog stated. The High Council expects all delegations to present their military attachés at that time. As Volog glided away, her honor guard resuming formation around her, Miko leaned toward Jack. That's new. They've never formally requested military presence before. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Something's got them spooked. Thrix's scales showed anxiety patterns when Volog mentioned the Hegemony Council. Their conversation was interrupted by the station's AI. Attention all delegates. The Zethkra Dominion fleet has arrived and is commencing their ritual of dominance display. The enormous view screens throughout the docking bay flickered to life, showing a fleet of ominous black ships forming a pattern that to human eyes resembled nothing so much as an elaborate middle finger pointed at the space station. Subtle, Jack muttered. Should we call home about the military attaché request? Miko asked. Jack considered this for a moment, watching as representatives from a dozen species hurried to their positions for the welcome ceremony, each accompanied by at least 4 heavily armed guards. No, he finally decided. Let's see how this plays out. Besides, you know what they say, never bring a gun to a peace summit unless you plan to use it. Miko finished with a grin. Exactly. Jack straightened his simple uniform. Now, let's go be the weird, underdressed humans everyone's afraid of for reasons they can't quite articulate. The Great Concord Chamber of Harmony 7 resembled the world's most intimidating theater in the round, with tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle around a central platform. The lighting was carefully calibrated to accommodate species from worlds with 7 different types of suns, resulting in a rainbow effect that made everyone look slightly jaundiced. Jack took his seat at the Earth delegation's modest table, notably devoid of the military personnel flanking every other delegation. The contrast was stark. 12 species, each with their diplomatic corps front and center, backed by stern-faced military officers in elaborately decorated uniforms. And then there was Earth. Jack, Miko and 2 junior diplomatic aides who looked fresh out of the academy. The Hegemony Council welcomes all delegations to the quinquennial Peace Summit, announced High Counselor Drexus, a gelatinous being whose translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as he spoke. His voice, as Jack had predicted, hit a frequency that made dental work throughout the chamber vibrate unpleasantly. Drexus continued with the traditional 20-minute welcome speech, which Jack had memorized from previous summits. He used the time to observe the room, noting the increased military presence compared to the previous summit. The Zorgonian delegation had brought twice their usual contingent, and even the normally pacifistic Melorians had officers wearing what appeared to be newly designed combat exoskeletons. Something's definitely up, Miko whispered, following Jack's gaze. And now, Drexus was saying, his gelatinous form quivering with ceremonial importance, as is tradition, each delegation will present their military attachés and provide a brief overview of their peacekeeping capabilities. Jack straightened in his chair. This was definitely new. The presentations began with the Arcturians. Commander Thrix stepped forward, his scales now pulsing a proud purple as holographic displays materialized around him, showcasing the latest Arcturian warships and weapons systems. The Arcturian Defense Fleet has increased its patrol capacity by 37% since the last summit, Thrix announced. Our new Sunfire-class destroyers can neutralize threats across 3-star systems simultaneously. The holographic display showed a massive vessel firing what appeared to be miniature suns at asteroid fields, vaporizing them instantly. Several delegations murmured appreciatively. One by one, each species presented increasingly impressive displays of military might. The Valaxians revealed ships that could phase through solid matter. The Zeth-Krad demonstrated weapons that manipulated time within localized fields. The Zorgonians, not to be outdone, proudly displayed their planet cracker missiles, capable of shattering small moons. Through it all, Jack maintained an expression of polite interest, occasionally whispering comments to Miko that made her struggle to suppress laughter. Finally, Drexus turned his gelatinous attention to the Earth table. And now, the Earth delegation will present their military capabilities. A hush fell over the chamber. Despite Earth's consistent refusal to bring military representatives to past summits, the other species always harbored hope that this time would be different, that humans would finally reveal whatever terrifying weapons they must be hiding. Jack stood up, straightened his simple uniform, and smiled. Thank you, High Counselor. Earth continues to maintain its position that peace summits are for diplomats, not military demonstrations. We have no presentation to make. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated outrage. This is an insult to the hegemony, declared the Zorgonian First Minister, his tentacles writhing with indignation. How can we negotiate in good faith when one party conceals their capabilities? Demanded the Malorian representative, her crystalline structure vibrating with distress. Admiral Volog rose gracefully, her galaxy eyes fixed on Jack. The Valaxian conclave formally requests that Earth comply with the summit protocols. Your continued secrecy suggests hostile intent. Jack raised his hands in a universal gesture of calm. Folks, let's take a breath. Isn't it ironic that at a peace summit, everyone's upset because we didn't bring weapons? Kind of defeats the whole peace concept, doesn't it? It is not about weapons, Drexus burbled irritably. It is about transparency. Transparency, Jack repeated thoughtfully. Interesting concept coming from someone whose body is literally transparent yet whose motives rarely are. A shocked silence fell over the chamber, broken only by Miko's poorly disguised snort of laughter. Commander Thrix's scales flashed with warning patterns. Ambassador Armstrong, you go too far. Do I? Jack asked, his casual tone belying the sudden tension in the room. Let's be honest here. This isn't about transparency. It's about everyone measuring the size of their guns. Earth has chosen not to participate in that particular contest. Because you have nothing to show, sneered the Zeth-Kra commander, his exoskeleton clicking menacingly. Jack smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. If that helps you sleep at night, or whatever your species does instead of sleeping, then by all means, continue believing that. High Counselor Drexus pulsed with what the translators interpreted as exasperation. Perhaps we should proceed to the trade negotiation portion of our agenda. Earth's continued eccentricity can be addressed at a later time. As the summit transitioned to trade discussions, Miko leaned toward Jack. That went well. They're scared, Jack murmured. And not just the usual mysterious humans scared, something specific has them spooked. Any theories? Jack's eyes tracked Admiral Volog, who was engaged in intense whispered conversation with her military attaché. Not yet, but I'm betting we'll find out before this summit is over. 3 hours into trade negotiations, the atmosphere in the Great Concord Chamber had devolved from tense diplomacy to what Jack privately termed passive-aggressive economic warfare. The Zorgonian delegation had proposed tariffs on human agricultural exports that would have made selling a single Earth apple cost roughly the same as a small moon. The Malorians had countered with offers to protect human shipping lanes for the low price of access to all of Jupiter's orbital patents. Jack was in the middle of explaining for the third time why Earth wouldn't be surrendering control of its antimatter production facilities to a neutral third party, which would inevitably be controlled by the Hegemony Council when the station's emergency alert system activated. Harsh red lights pulsed across the chamber as the station AI's voice cut through the negotiations. Security breach detected in Sector 7. All delegates please remain in your current locations. Security personnel are responding. The various military attachés immediately surrounded their respective diplomats. Commander Thrix's scales flashed alert patterns as he barked orders into his communicator. Admiral Volog's honor guard formed a perfect defensive perimeter around her, their ceremonial halberds suddenly looking much more functional than decorative. Meanwhile, the Earth delegation continued sitting at their table, looking mildly inconvenienced at worst. Aren't you concerned? The Zeth-Kra commander asked, his mandibles clicking rapidly as his guards took up positions around him. You have no protection, Jack shrugged. I'm pretty sure whatever's happening isn't about us. The chamber doors slid open, and a squad of station security officers rushed in, led by Commander Relvox. His 6 arms were all wielding different security devices, from scanners to restraint fields. "The station has been breached," Relvox announced, his voice tight with controlled panic. "We've detected unauthorized entities in the environmental control systems. They appear to be some form of adaptive security probes." "That's impossible," Admiral Volag stated. "Harmony 7's defense systems are designed to prevent exactly this type of infiltration." "Nevertheless," Relvox replied, "something has bypassed our outer and inner security perimeters. We're attempting to isolate and contain the intrusion." The station shuddered slightly, and the lights flickered. Several delegates gasped or made species-specific sounds of alarm. "They're in the power grid now," Relvox continued, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in sequence, a sign of extreme stress in Traxians. "We're initiating emergency protocols." Jack exchanged a look with Miko, who nodded almost imperceptibly. He stood up, drawing the attention of the chamber. "Commander Relvox," Jack said calmly, "with your permission, I'd like to contact my government. We might be able to offer some assistance." Before Relvox could respond, the Zorgonian First Minister's tentacles writhed in what translators rendered as incredulous laughter. "What assistance could you possibly offer? Your species doesn't even bring security personnel to these summits." Jack smiled thinly. "We have resources." Commander Thrix stepped forward, his scales now pulsing with a pattern Jack recognized as genuine concern. "Let him make the call, Relvox. The humans may be strange, but they're not stupid." Relvox hesitated, then nodded. "Very well, you may use the secure communications station in the antechamber." Jack nodded to Miko, who remained seated while he walked calmly to the antechamber, aware of the suspicious eyes following him. Once inside, he activated the quantum communicator and input a series of codes that no one in the chamber would have recognized. "Armstrong here. Authentication Sierra Echo Papa 472. We've got a situation at Harmony 7. Possible probe incursion, unknown origin. Request immediate assistance, category yellow." There was a brief pause before a response came through. "Authentication confirmed. Category yellow acknowledged. Response team deploying. ETA 7 minutes. Standard protocol." Jack considered for a moment. "No, given the circumstances, I think it's time for Protocol Whiskey Tango Foxtrot." Another pause. "Confirmed, sir. Protocol Whiskey Tango Foxtrot authorized. Sending the package." When Jack returned to the chamber, the situation had deteriorated. The station's gravity had gone askew, causing everyone to hold onto their tables as they listed at a 15-degree angle. The lighting continued to flicker, and the atmosphere processors were making a worrying wheezing sound. "Whatever these probes are," Relvox was saying, "they're adapting to our countermeasures faster than we can implement them. They've already disabled 3 subsystems." "Any idea who they belong to?" Jack asked, resuming his seat with remarkable ease despite the tilted gravity. Every military representative in the room straightened defensively, and a ripple of translated denials echoed around the chamber. "We're still analyzing their construction," Relvox replied, "but they appear to utilize technology from multiple species, almost as if they were designed to implicate everyone and no one." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Right in the middle of a summit where everyone's showing off their biggest guns." Admiral Volag's galaxy eyes swirled with suspicion. "What are you implying, Ambassador Armstrong?" "Nothing at all," Jack said innocently. "Just making an observation. Oh, and by the way, you might want to brace yourselves. Help is on the way." "Your help?" The Zethkra commander clicked dismissively. What could possibly? He was interrupted by the station AI. "Attention. Unknown vessel approaching at high velocity. Vessel does not match any known configuration in database." The main view screen activated automatically, showing a sleek, midnight blue ship approaching the station. It was smaller than most military vessels, perhaps the size of a terrestrial destroyer, with no visible weapons systems, but something about its design caused every military officer in the room to fall silent. "What is that?" Commander Thrix finally asked, his scales shifting to a pattern that indicated deep unease. Jack smiled. "That, my friends, is why Earth doesn't bring military to peace summits." The midnight blue vessel decelerated with impossible precision, coming to a complete stop alongside Harmony 7 without using visible thrusters or experiencing any detectable inertial effects. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an unsettling silhouette against the starfield behind it. "Unidentified vessel, this is Harmony 7 control," Commander Relvox announced, all 6 arms working different control panels simultaneously. "Identify yourself immediately or defensive measures will be taken." Jack cleared his throat. "I wouldn't recommend that, Commander." The chamber went deadly quiet as all eyes turned to Jack. "That, he continued calmly, is the EAS troubleshooter. Earth Diplomatic Response Unit. Diplomatic response, Admiral Volog repeated, her galaxy eyes spinning so rapidly they resembled miniature whirlpools. That vessel has no diplomatic configuration. Because it's not a diplomatic vessel, Miko explained, standing up beside Jack. At least, not in the way you're thinking. The view screen changed to show a close-up of the vessel's hull, where subtle markings became visible. EAS troubleshooter. When diplomacy needs backup. I don't understand, Commander Thrix said, his scales shifting through patterns of confusion so rapidly they created a strobe effect. Earth has military vessels after all. Not exactly, Jack said. The troubleshooter isn't military. It's technically classified as a diplomatic incident resolution platform. Completely different department. The station shuddered again, more violently this time, and the gravity field fluctuated, causing several delegates to float momentarily before crashing back to the floor. Station systems failing, the AI announced, its voice distorting. Environmental controls compromised. Estimated time to life support failure, 12 minutes. Permission to dock and render assistance, came a calm voice over the station's comms. The voice had the distinctive crispness of someone who had spent their entire career making polite requests that were actually orders. Commander Relvox looked at Jack, who nodded reassuringly. Permission granted, Relvox said, sounding both relieved and deeply suspicious. The view screen showed the troubleshooter extending a docking mechanism unlike anything the assembled delegates had ever seen. A shimmering field of blue energy that seemed to phase through the station's hull without damaging it. What is that technology? Demanded the Zorgonian First Minister, his tentacles writhing with a mixture of fear and covetousness. That violates at least 3 hegemony non-proliferation treaties. Does it? Jack asked innocently. I believe those treaties specifically regulate military technology. As I mentioned, the troubleshooter is a diplomatic vessel. That's semantics, spat the Zethkra commander. Welcome to diplomacy, Miko replied with a serene smile. The chamber doors slid open, and 5 figures entered. They wore form-fitting midnight blue uniforms that matched their vessel, with no visible weapons or equipment. Their only identifying feature was a small silver pin shaped like an olive branch crossed with what looked suspiciously like a screwdriver. The leader, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and the posture of someone who had never been intimidated by anything in her life, approached Jack and offered a crisp nod. Commander Eliza Blackwood, Diplomatic Incident Resolution Specialist, she announced, her voice matching the one they'd heard over the comms. Situation report. Jack gestured to the room at large. Unidentified probes have infiltrated station systems. Origins unknown, purpose unclear, but timing extremely suspicious. Commander Blackwood nodded once, then touched her collar. Nightingale, initiate full spectrum sweep and containment. Protocol Echo 7. One of her team members, a slender person with features that somehow seemed to shift subtly when not directly observed, tapped something on their wrist. A wave of invisible energy pulsed through the chamber, felt rather than seen, and suddenly the station stabilized. The gravity normalized, the lights stopped flickering, and the atmosphere processors resumed their normal, barely perceptible hum. Probes located and neutralized, the team member reported in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Analysis indicates Zethkra construction, Valaxian programming, and Zorgonian power systems. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. That's impossible, the Zethkra commander chittered furiously. This is clearly a human plot to discredit. We've recovered one intact for your inspection, Commander Blackwood interrupted, gesturing to another team member who stepped forward holding what appeared to be a small silver sphere suspended in a containment field. Our analysis equipment is of course available for verification. Admiral Volog rose from her seat, her normally composed demeanor shattered. How did you neutralize them so quickly? Our military technicians estimated it would take hours to isolate the infiltration. Commander Blackwood's expression remained professionally neutral, but a ghost of a smile touched her lips. The Diplomatic Incident Resolution Division specializes in efficiently solving problems that threaten peaceful negotiations, with technology that could clearly be weaponized, the Zorgonian First Minister accused, tentacles quivering. But isn't, Jack pointed out. That's the key difference here. Everything you saw could be weaponized. Yes, but we don't use it that way. Commander Thrix, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly barked a laugh that made everyone jump. His scales had settled into a pattern of reluctant admiration. Now I understand. This is why Earth never brings military to peace summits. Jack nodded. Bingo. I don't follow, Relvox said, all four eyes blinking in confusion. Jack gestured to Commander Blackwood and her team, who had efficiently set up a temporary workstation, and were already producing detailed reports on the infiltration. Earth doesn't bring military to peace summits because we don't need to. We have something better. Your diplomatic incident resolution specialists, Admiral Volog said, the galaxies in her eyes now spinning slowly with dawning comprehension. Exactly, Miko confirmed. While everyone else is busy showing off how effectively they can destroy things, we've been perfecting how to solve problems without destroying anything. Commander Blackwood approached Jack and handed him a datapad. Full report, Ambassador. The probes were designed to create a crisis situation that would force all delegates to reveal emergency response protocols. They were recording and transmitting all military countermeasures deployed against them. A technological intelligence gathering operation disguised as an attack, Jack summarized, scanning the report. Clever. And the responsible parties. The transmission signals were being routed through 17 different relays. Commander Blackwood replied, but we've traced them to their origin point. She hesitated, glancing around the chamber. Perhaps that information would be better discussed privately. High Counselor Drexus, who had been uncharacteristically silent throughout the incident, suddenly pulsed with agitation. There will be no private discussions. This summit operates on principles of transparency. Jack looked at Commander Blackwood, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod. Very well, Jack said, turning to face the chamber. The transmission signals were being routed to a vessel registered to the personal fleet of High Counselor Drexus. The chamber erupted into chaos as Drexus's gelatinous form pulsed with patterns that the translators couldn't keep up with. The security feed on the main view screen shifted to show a small vessel attempting to flee the station, only to be enveloped in a gentle blue field projected from the troubleshooter. This is what Earth brings to peace summits, Jack announced over the commotion. Not warships, not guns, but solutions. He gestured toward Commander Blackwood and her team. And this, ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations, is the real reason Earth never brings its military to peace summits. 72 standard hours after what galactic news feeds were already calling the Harmony 7 incident, the summit reconvened with notably different energy. The military attachés were still present, but had adopted significantly more subdued postures. High Counselor Drexus had been replaced by an interim representative, a fact no one commented on directly, but everyone acknowledged through meaningful glances. The EAS troubleshooter remained docked at the station, its midnight blue hull visible through the chamber's viewports, a silent reminder of Earth's unique approach to interstellar relations. Jack stood at the central podium, finalizing the terms of what would be known as the Harmony Accords, the most comprehensive peace and cooperation agreement the galactic community had achieved in 3 centuries. The Earth delegation proposes one final amendment to Section 27, Jack announced. The establishment of a diplomatic incident resolution training academy, open to all signatories, hosted on Earth's lunar colony. Admiral Volog, whose galaxy eyes had settled into a pattern of grudging respect, inclined her head precisely 23.7 degrees, the angle reserved for equals under Valaxian protocol. The Valaxian conclave supports this amendment. Commander Thrix, whose scales now displayed a calm blue pattern, nodded enthusiastically. The Arcturians also support this proposal. Perhaps we have been overly focused on displaying strength rather than building solutions. One by one, each delegation voiced their support, including the Zorgonians and the Zethkra, both of whom had been unusually cooperative since their joint involvement in the probe plot had been exposed. Then it's settled, Jack said, applying his thumbprint to the agreement. The Harmony Accords are officially ratified. The chamber erupted in applause, or various species-specific expressions of approval, from tentacle undulations to exoskeleton vibrations. As the formal proceedings concluded, and delegations began mingling in what passed for a celebratory reception, Commander Thrix approached Jack with a drink that smelled vaguely of cinnamon and engine coolant. A remarkable outcome, Ambassador Armstrong, Thrix rumbled, his scales shifting through patterns of curiosity. But I must ask, Earth has maintained this diplomatic incident resolution divisions for how long? Since our first contact with the Arcturian fleet about 70 Earth years ago, Jack replied, accepting the drink but discreetly not consuming it. We realized pretty quickly that we'd need a specialized approach to interstellar diplomacy. Admiral Volog glided over, joining their conversation. The technology your team deployed was extraordinary, yet you classify none of it as military. That's correct, Jack confirmed. Everything the troubleshooter carries is designed with a primary function of solving problems, not creating them. The fact that solving problems sometimes requires impressive technology is just a bonus. But surely, Commander Thrix pressed, Earth must maintain traditional military forces as well, for planetary defense, if nothing else. Jack smiled enigmatically. Of course we do. Then why not bring them to summits, as is tradition? Admiral Volog asked, the galaxies in her eyes swirling with genuine curiosity. Jack exchanged a glance with Miko, who had joined them with Commander Blackwood at her side. Allow me, Commander Blackwood said, speaking for the first time since the formal proceedings had concluded. Earth doesn't bring its military to peace summits for a very simple reason. She paused, looking around at the gathered alien representatives, all leaning in slightly to catch her answer. We don't bring our military, she continued, because the Diplomatic Incident Resolution Division is our military. A stunned silence fell over the group. But, Thrix began, his scales flickering with confusion. You said they weren't military. Their vessel has no weapons. No, Jack corrected gently. I said the troubleshooter isn't classified as a military vessel, and it doesn't have anything that we classify as weapons. But think about what you saw: technology that can neutralize sophisticated infiltration systems in seconds, containment fields that can stop a fleeing ship, energy systems that can bypass the most advanced security measures in the galaxy. Are you saying? Admiral Volog's voice had taken on an unusual tremor, her galaxy eyes spinning rapidly. Earth's entire approach to space has always been different, Miko explained. While every other species was building bigger guns and more intimidating ships, we were developing ways to solve problems without firing a shot. The Diplomatic Incident Resolution Division is Earth's first, last, and only line of interstellar defense, Commander Blackwood stated matter-of-factly. We just found that solving problems works better than creating new ones. But that would mean, Commander Thrix's scales had gone completely white with shock. That for 70 years, Jack finished for him. While everyone was busy showing off their military might at every summit, Earth has been quietly bringing the most advanced problem-solving force in the galaxy, and calling it our diplomatic corps. Admiral Volog's silvery skin had taken on a distinctly paler hue. The vessel that could have neutralized our entire fleet was designed by our diplomatic engineers. Yes, Jack confirmed cheerfully. Don't worry, it would only have done so if absolutely necessary, and without causing any permanent damage. So when you said Earth travels light to peace summits, Thrix began. We meant it literally, Jack replied with a grin. One ship, no weapons, just solutions. As the implications rippled through the gathered representatives, Jack raised his glass in a toast. To the Harmony Accords, and to finally understanding why Earth never brings its military to peace summits. Commander Blackwood leaned closer to Jack and murmured, should we tell them about the actual military? Jack's smile widened as he whispered back, let's save something for the next summit. In the viewport behind them, the EAS troubleshooter gleamed in the light of Proxima Centauri, a sleek, midnight blue reminder that in a galaxy obsessed with showing strength, Earth's greatest power had always been hiding in plain sight, the ability to solve problems without creating new ones. And somewhere, in the vast classified complexes beneath the Olympus Mons colony on Mars, Earth's actual military forces continued their regular training exercises, blissfully unnecessary in a galaxy that had never quite figured out the difference between looking dangerous and being effective.